Welcome to This Explainer, where we're going to completely untangle one of the biggest, most common, everyday mysteries of our modern world. How exactly does Google know what you're searching for? I mean, think about it. You type in a few random words, you hit enter, and bam, seemingly by pure magic, the exact right answer is just sitting there waiting for you. But as we'll see by unpacking our source materials today, the journey from your keyboard to that final results page is this totally fascinating mix of incredibly helpful algorithms and, well, an absolutely massive data gathering operation. To really wrap our heads around this, let's start with a super relatable scenario from the sources. Let's say it's getting close to dinner, you're pretty hungry, and you just want a simple recipe for lasagna. So you type it into the search bar. We've all been there, right? But what's happening right beneath that visible surface of the search box is where the real mechanics actually kick in. You see, you aren't just searching some digital recipe book. You're actually searching a continuously mapped index of hundreds of billions of web pages. And that brings us to just an absolutely awe-inspiring number, 0.81. In 0.81 seconds, the algorithm manages to sift through all those hundreds of billions of pages, figure out exactly what you want, filter out all the junk, and deliver the perfect lasagna recipe right to your screen. Less than a second? It's a staggering technical achievement. But how on earth does it pull that off so fast and so accurately? Well, let's look at Section 1, inside the ranking algorithm. First up, Google essentially acts like a giant library, constantly mapping the web to build an index. But honestly, a massive index just isn't enough on its own. Second, it has to aggressively filter out spam. The sources point out that just because some scammy site like instantvirusdownload.net repeats the phrase lasagna recipe 400 times, that's not actually going to help you make dinner. So the software identifies and completely removes those kinds of tricks. And finally, it ranks the remaining legitimate results based on hundreds of incredibly complex factors. And you know what one of the most crucial ranking factors is? Your location. If you search for lasagna while you're physically standing in Ormia, Italy, the algorithm assumes you're probably looking for information about their famous annual lasagna festival. But if you search for that exact same word in Omaha, Nebraska, you probably just want a standard recipe. The search engine literally tailors the results to where you are standing at that exact moment. But here's the thing, the algorithm isn't just coasting on old data. The sources reveal this wild statistic. 1 out of every 7 queries typed into Google has never been searched before, by anyone, ever. Because the internet and honestly human curiosity are just constantly evolving, Google actually relies on thousands of human quality raters every single day. They sit there and evaluate search results side by side just to make sure the software updates are actually making the engine more helpful and reliable for us. Which brings us to Section 2, the personalization data machine. Okay, consider this number for a second, 24,000. That is the staggering scale of interactions just one single user logged with Google in a single month. And get this, that was for someone who doesn't even use Gmail and considers themselves to be privacy conscious. Every single app downloaded, every route mapped out, every document typed, it breaks down to roughly 800 entries a day. This tracking, it's not a glitch. It is the system working exactly as it was designed to. Because fundamentally, Google is an advertising empire. Over 70% of its entire revenue relies on collecting user information so they can sell targeted ads. All those incredibly helpful services we love, the phones, the browser, the maps, the cloud storage, they exist in large part to feed this advertising machine by building a highly comprehensive profile of your personal habits. The source material provides a really great metaphor to help visualize this. They call it the information fishbowl. Imagine a series of small fishbowls, and each one represents an individual service, like search or YouTube or maps. Every time you interact, you're adding another drop of your personal data into these bowls, slowly deepening the color. And eventually, all of this feeds into one massive fishbowl, a constantly growing surveillance profile that's designed to offer you what Google calls a personalized experience. So you might think you're just innocently kicking back and watching a baseball highlight on YouTube. But the platform is actually taking your search history and your watch time, and it's categorizing you into highly specific granular groups. For example, you become Dad in Florida over 30 who likes baseball. Now, Google isn't directly handing your personal file over to advertisers. Rather, they are selling those advertisers access to people who fit these incredibly specific targeted profiles. And if you're thinking, well, I'll just avoid it, that's a lot harder than you might think. Our sources list several unseen tracking vectors. For instance, the Chrome browser actually sends what you type into the address bar to a server in real time, even if you never actually hit enter. Crazy, right? And even if you avoid Google's own websites entirely, over half of all websites on the internet run on Google Analytics, and millions use reCAPTCHA for security, meaning your activity is pretty much constantly being verified and tracked across the wider web. Now let's look at Section 3, Secret Backdoors and Tracking. So where does all this data go? The sources outline two major backdoors. The first one involves government access. The materials detail how U.S. government entities actually have multiple legal pathways to access user metadata, often without ever needing to stand in front of a judge. These include tools like FISA Section 702 for foreign surveillance, which can incidentally sweep up U.S. citizens' data. Then there are national security letters, used by the FBI to force the handover of names and addresses, as well as administrative subpoenas. The second backdoor is actually built right into the advertising system itself. Here is how it works. You open a web page, and Google's ad system instantly sends out a bid request to advertisers to auction off your profile. But the problem is, that broadcast can inadvertently contain your real-time GPS coordinates. Data brokers essentially sit on these exchanges and harvest this bid stream data hundreds of times a day. They're basically building their own detailed profiles of you completely outside of Google's control. Which leads us to our final part, Section 4, the AI future. Google is actively building something that pulls all of those separate data fishbowls we talked about into one single place. They call it personal intelligence. By integrating their AI, Gemini, you can now search across absolutely everything Google knows about you. It combines your private emails, your calendar events, your YouTube watch history, and your daily searches into one massively searchable, highly capable AI tool. But this integration definitely comes with a catch, as highlighted by this direct quote pulled right from the Gemini support page. Your data is used to improve Google services, including training generative AI models for everyone. So by utilizing this incredibly helpful personal AI, the sources suggest you are essentially consenting to have your private data, your summaries, excerpts, and inferences fed straight back into the public machine to train the AI for everyone else. We started this whole journey by looking at the helpful, almost magical ability to find a lasagna recipe in 0.81 seconds. But as we've seen today, this magic is fueled by an infrastructure that is wired for deep, constant behavioral profiling. It's a system that tracks our keystrokes, broadcasts our location, and feeds our most personal data into global AI models. The source material leaves us with a profound and, frankly, provocative question to consider regarding our own digital footprints. Is this really the internet we want? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring exactly how your own data is being used out there.